Okay, let's get rolling with the show. Sexy Viking, Big Matthias, how you doing today?
I'm doing very well. How about you?
Oh, this is good. This is Corey Miceli with the Corey Miceli Show. And let's get rolling a little bit. Earlier, we were chatting and just talking about what kind of a powerful influence coaches can have, um, on their athletes or clients' lives. And not sure what the culture is like over in Denmark, but in the United States, growing up, like the athletes, it's within like the school or your local area, it's very unlikely that the athlete will have a choice or say in the matter as to who their coach is. So, just speaking from my life experience, I've fortunate enough to work with some coaches that had a phenomenal, like wonderful influence on my life. I thought were like incredible people and like really run the job for the right reason. I've also had experience playing for some coaches that I question why they were even in the coaching business, as like they just seemed like the athlete's best interest in mind was like something far not even in their spectrum of thinking. So just what is like for a child growing up in Denmark, are there multiple sports from which to choose at schools like grade school, junior high, high school? What are the general athletics like coming up in the school system in Denmark?
We have handball and soccer. That's pretty much it.
That's, okay. Yeah. So the youth sports culture in America, from what you just said, is way bigger.
Yeah.
So interesting. I got here's an interesting story. When I was a kid in North Carolina, my mother signed me up for a soccer team. I really didn't know anything about soccer, but I really wanted to be a football player. But the reality is, I think we were too poor to pay the fees for football. So, football might have been $100 for the season, and soccer might have been $7 for the season or something ridiculous back then. But anyway, the first like week of practice, we had this guy. I forget. He was obviously, I don't remember. He's like a young black gentleman from another country. I do not remember what country he was from. We're talking like 1977 or 1978 in North Carolina. And I, as a little kid, didn't really realize it then, but looking back on it, there was like a tremendous amount of like racial tension in general. I was just, thank God I had parents that like, I didn't really understand the notion of racism, because as goofy as my parents had been my first few years of life, they definitely did not breed any like notion of racism into me. So I thank them for that. But anyway, this coach, looking back on it, this guy knew what he was doing, man. He knew there's a bunch of kids in America that didn't know crap about playing soccer. So his number one job was to really instill like, fundamentals of like how to actually, ball handling, passing the ball, being quick on your feet, your balance, all those things. So, for example, if you like goofed up, or he had this little drill that would like reinforce like some ball handling basics, that if you made some kind of error that was like attributed to your lack of skill, there was like you had to like do this like little course and dribble the ball around and pass it or something. So rather than like having a bunch of practicing a bunch of set plays, he was doing his best to instill like a real positive energy and like ball handling with us. And I remember one of the snooty dads was like, I could tell there was this weird vibe that he didn't like what was going on. He said, "Aren't you guys learning any plays?" And we were like, we're all pumped up and we liked it. But this stuffy old guy, he evidently had a problem with the coach. And like all of a sudden, 2 days later, the coach who all the kids really liked and thought was awesome was just gone. And his dad became the coach. And this guy obviously didn't know jack crap about soccer. So all he spent the whole season trying to like orchestrate all these fancy plays and never focused on like the fundamentals of like, the energy changed, the style of practice changed, and like the enjoyment factor like went out the window. So just like that was like my first experience as to like how powerful the impact of a coach can be for what changed the coach. It was the same kid, same practice field, same time of day, but the coach made it. That's when I first understood how powerful and important the impact of a coach was. So thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, we have very few sports around here. It's like you get to choose between handball and soccer pretty much. And because where I live is like near the ocean, we also have a rowing team. And maybe some places are lucky to have basketball or even football, but usually it's just about handball, soccer. Well, I guess floorball, maybe floorball, maybe a few places.
Yeah, my point is the psychology, the impact, and the what kind of change or impact in the life of the athlete can that coach make. So
and the way it is here is also we just get some kind of teacher, and it's usually a volunteer who doesn't really know much. Our culture is very different in the way that we just run around and play basically, and we don't really lift weight. We don't really get into the psychology of training hard at all, to be honest.
Right.
At least not how I hear. At least not how I hear about a high school, college football team kind of setting. So yeah, I mean, I know for sure it's very important to have like very good coach. I remember the guy who taught me powerlifting a while ago, how he would always have these analogies he would teach us. He would always like be honest with our mindset, how prepared we seem, like our focus on the weights and how to think about the details without overthinking. And we would talk to like midnight, even later than that on some weekdays even, because there were so many things we had to go through. And that certainly made a big difference in I mean, keeping me interested in learning about it and doing more research on my own over the years.
Right. Yeah, well, I'd say I'm going to share some other stories about some impact in my lives that coaches have had. But to me, it became such an important aspect of like who I was as a person. The very first business I had was, purely a coaching business. And it was like, it was a very successful business. And I could say that I learned a lot from like the coaches that had a very direct positive impact in my life. But I also learned a lot from the coaches that were, a little more pessimistic or like maybe ego driven or conflict oriented in nature, because I used those experiences just as much on like almost a what not to do list, or have an opposing principle of coaching styles. Well, that went against some of against the grain of some of the more negative experiences I've had with coaches. So, I had a complete like protocol, like 130-page manual on successful coaching that we trained other coaches all over the country with. It was pretty cool. So, to me, it's like the effect is definitely profound. It could be like just have such a major impact in the direction of a young, any person's life, but this conversation, a young person's life. And I think I maybe shared with you in the past, just sometimes I remember Ernie Franz watching me deadlift as a college football player and just making the comment. He's like, Corey, if you ever want to take the time to really learn how to deadlift properly, you'll probably be one of the best in the world at it. And that stuck with me. And I remember like after I, got my, jumped to that 900-pound deadlift club, came back down, was talking to Ernie to remind him of that. And he kind of chuckled. He's like, yeah, he said, I really wasn't sure if you could or not, but I figured you'd be better off having you believe the fact that you could than having any other thought in your mind. I thought that was kind of funny. He said, he said, so evidently I was right, but I was only right because you believed I was right. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, the guy I mentioned, he did kind of the same thing, but one day he got fucking pissed off and he got in like a sort of like a rage where he lost all focus on like his surroundings and him. Like how a person just talks shit and they barely even know what they're saying or if they really mean it. And he would say,
I can relate. Yes.
And he was like, you shut the fuck up. I'm the best. You will never be like me. You will never be better than me. You'll never deadlift 300 kilos. I lied to you because I had to cheer you or encourage you or whatever, And like that was pretty weird. I mean, that's an example of how a coach shouldn't be.
Absolutely, yeah, perfect example. Yeah, because like we talked about in a couple episodes ago, the power of your words carry like life and death in them.
Yeah.
So it's this is pretty interesting. Hold on, Matthias. Let me add this because this is fresh in my mind. I was just watching some like short video clips today, and I forget who the person was that made this quote, but he was like, a good person, if a person is, no matter what you do, as a coach or a friend or advisor or whatever, if the person is not ready for success or to come up or improve themselves or do better, no matter what you do, the person will not come up. The opposite, however, is that negative draw on you can bring a person down that's not necessarily willing to go down. You can, so that negative energy, that negative weight can be like very, very powerful, because a person has to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Receptive and willing and already on a direction to achieve high success for the coaching input to really work in the first place. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
Whereas you could, the example I gave of the young kid in the weight room, when I was like, oh my gosh, there's no way you should be doing that. And unfortunately, planting that seed in this young man's head, he was never able to do it again. So we kind of were talking about the West Side training with Louis Simmons in an earlier conversation. And like Louis said, yeah, the West Side training is great. But basically, if you come in and if you're not driven to an extremely high level, then this program is no better than any other program out there, no matter what. So being receptive to those, being receptive to that coaching input, your state of mind to be coachable, I guess that's the responsibility that the athlete bears.
Yeah. I mean,
and also, and then, and man, criticism, knocking someone down or being criticized or being attacked, having the fortitude to bounce back from that is pretty important. And I think that's where, when you do have a say in the matter as to who you can associate yourself with and be around, be around those people that enjoy seeing you, want you to succeed, and really truly believe in you. Because that negative energy can be very, much like positive energy can be infectious and help and boost things, that negative energy can cripple things down very, very fast.
Yeah, and I mean, when my old coach, mentor, whatever you want to call him, he said that, I mean, I just took my things and I walked home. And I mean, he actually said bye to me, and I ignored him. And he said, "You're not going to say bye." I don't even think I answered him. I just left. And then the next day he texted me, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have been so angry. I didn't, And I told him, well, it's okay, but at least now I know how you truly think about me, And he said, "No, I don't think those things. I didn't mean it." And I was like, yeah, whatever. I wasn't actually bothered by him. The only way it bothered me really was, well, what if he says something another time, good or bad? Does he mean it? Doesn't he mean it? But I pretty much just carried on. I didn't get pulled down at all because I have such a big, juicy, nasty, awesome ego,
Right.
And that's pretty much what a person has to do, because there's programming all around us. There's media, there are parents, there are aunts, brothers, sisters, cousins, school teachers, whatever. And although 99% of them all have great intentions, most of them have low self-esteem, they're insecure, they can't handle seeing someone go after what they wish they had the guts to go after, all that kind of stuff. So you really need to know when to listen to yourself over anyone else in the entire world. And you also need to know who is encouraging you in a way that you need to, and then pick up good vibes from them and use it to build yourself up.
Here, I'll share this story with you, Matthias. It was my now when I first went to play college football. Oh, again, the ups and downs of the stories of self-sabotage in my life are pretty much never ending. But fast version of the story, I my college football career started out completely rocky. I think I got arrested I don't know, 2 or 3 times in the first month of the school starting, and I really rubbed the head coach, specifically the offensive coordinator, the wrong way. So second year of college football is underway, and I'm playing on the scout team. And in my mind, I'm like, man, I am so much better. Let me say this, I said, the level of play I'm capable of, I should be out there playing. I said, it's ridiculous I'm on the scout team. And there was this guy named Tim Lance who had a brief NFL football career, and he kind of came back. We became friends, and he took me out to dinner once, and he's like, "Cooter, you know why you ain't on that field playing?" And I said, "Why?" He goes, "They don't believe in you." He said, "It's obvious you have the ability to play out there, but rather than like have them believe in you, he said, you just need to go out there and practice. You need to beat on these people and make it so undeniable that they gives them no choice but to start you or something like that. So, for an older athlete taking the time to kind of plant that seed in me, that really changed the like level of play I was capable of. And like from that moment forward, like I really elevated my game. So in that respect, I don't know, I had like it kind of put a chip on my shoulder because I knew like the deck was stacked against me, so to speak, largely due in the part of my own actions. So I knew the only way to change the scenario was through my own actions. And I think that elevated my play like to a very, very high level. And anyway, for what it's worth, I think that's a relevant story to share also.
Mm.
In other words, this guy who was a pro athlete, taking the time to like have the belief in me and give me some specific direction on what to do, kind of like overshadowed some of the maybe negative energy I was experiencing from my direct coaches, where this athlete became kind of a friend, mentor, unofficial coach for me also.
Yeah, I mean, it's really all about, having a kind of attitude where maybe if you're not, like, even though maybe you're not getting ahead, that people can still see you have it in you to get ahead later,
Right. Having some of that resilience. Here, this is a cool, I'll share two old school stories that I thought were pretty amazing. There was a young man that was he had a lot going for him. He was like a powerful warrior type young man, and he was going to travel to some other village, and the people from the village said, we're sick of this guy. We're going to trap him. We're going to bury a hole. We're going to dig a huge hole and like cover it up, and he's going to come by. We're going to like bury him alive. So as the man's walking, this young man's walking to whatever his destination was, sure enough, he falls into the trap. Boom, falls to the bottom of the pit. He's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? So all the young men that set the trap for him started cheering and just throwing everything into throwing rocks and dirt, and they were going to bury him alive. And this guy realized, I'm not going to let them bury me alive. I'm just going to use all the stuff they're trying to bury me alive with as a platform to stand up, get out of this hole, and kick their ass and go on to do whatever I was going to do. So there's a much fancier, longer, elaborate way of telling the story, but the bottom line is what was set for a trap for this young man. And with the intent of killing him, he turned around and used it as a means of his own survival, and he escaped. He used what was meant to kill him as the very means of his survival. So I thought that's a pretty cool story.
Yeah, I mean, it takes some guts too, because they're throwing it at him at the same time, and I mean, he could do some serious damage with rocks, So it's like,
Right.
what's he even gonna do when he gets up there? How is he gonna win? He's so beat up from getting shit thrown at him and from fucking placing things the right way and stepping up on it, falling on his ass. Who knows how many times, So I mean, it takes a lot of courage to not just accept his fate,
Right. Well, there was a. Let me see if I can get this one right. There's two old farmers sitting around the general store, and they were like swapping stories. The one farmer says, "Yeah, I was sitting in my day watching my my horses, and this wild stallion from nowhere like came in, and like he gathered together with my other horses." And then the other farmer says, "Wow, that's good luck." He says, "Yeah, that's what I thought." But the next thing I know, this stallion took off, and my two other horses followed him out to the middle of, stormed away. I thought I was never going to see him again. He's like, "Wow, that's bad luck." He's like, "Yeah, I thought so too." But then the next day, the wild stallion and my two horses come back with a dozen other horses. He says, "Wow, that's good luck." He says, "Yeah, I thought so too." "Well, what do you mean?" He's like, "Well, my son decided to like break in one of the new horses and ride it. And lo and behold, he snapped his leg and he had a horrible broken leg from it." He's like, "Wow, that's bad luck." He said, "Yeah, I thought so too. But the next day, the service came to town to draft every able-bodied young man. And because my son's leg was broken, he couldn't go. And the entire plane crashed on the way to their site." So moral of the story is we don't really know what's good luck, bad luck. We only have we only play with the hand that we're dealt with, and we got to like make the best out of it. So that story kind of stuck with me also.
Yeah, I think I saw that on Facebook the other day. It was pretty meaningful.
Right.
Like how Gary Vee says that at one time he was offered to invest in something. I don't know if it was Bitcoin or whatever it was. And he said if he had invested the normal amount he tends to invest into new things that he thinks might be something, but he don't quite know yet, then he would have achieved his dream by now and been able to like buy the Jets, the football team, the Jets. But he says he's not bothered at all by the fact that he didn't capitalize on it, because in his eyes, what could have happened was he could have bought the Jets, he could have went over there, and then he could have been hit by a bus and died.
Yeah, bottom line is we all got, no matter what situation we're currently in, we got the rest of the day to do the best we can with it, man. So yeah. I think that's the general moral of the story for sure.
Yeah, we never really know what's going to happen to us. So like going around dwelling on bad shit that happened, well, you could have died instead. I mean, so you never really know if it would have been so much better to have gotten what you wanted right then and right there.
Hey, like Ren and Stimpy said, let's push the history eraser button. What'll happen? We don't know. Maybe something bad, maybe something good. Yeah. So we just don't know. Let's just keep moving forward, and let's work. Again, anyone out there that has like had a pattern of self-sabotage, man, take the time, stop, break that pattern. Just like know that you are worthy of loving yourself. Because again, most people that have that some form of negative self-image, for whatever reason, they tend to be able to project a very positive energy to other people. There's nothing wrong with treating yourself right, encouraging yourself, motivating yourself, forgiving yourself for mistakes. And no matter, patterns can be broken, man. They really can. It might take some radical effort. Might even be, maybe just, I had this advice from a gentleman once too. When it's time to make a new pattern in life, start doing everything different. Make your bed a different way. Get up on the different side of the bed. Brush your teeth before you take a shower, or vice versa. Take a different way to work. Like have a different type of food for lunch. Just get used to like don't let your patterns control you. You stay in control of your patterns. So identifying like a trait, a trend, a behavior, something that you've done over and over, and trust me, I'm speaking from years of experience with this, that it takes some intentional, it takes being intentional to create a different outcome at times. Like we've talked about in the past, the attitude that goes behind your actions completely dictates the results you're going to get, because each action is an equal and opposite reaction. So, being in control of your actions can yield such a wonderful outcome. And I've experienced that in my life too. At times I've let it slip and just let random emotion and random behavior take over. That's what I tend to drift back to, like, treating myself the absolute worst. So I know, me speaking from experience, a very important part of my current strategy is treating myself with kindness, encouragement, and forgiveness each and every single day. And I've probably accomplished more in the first month of this year than I accomplished the entire year of 2021. So that feels pretty good. I'm going to build on that, keep developing new, healthy, powerful, successful habits, help other people, and give this show like a great purpose in society. It's part of my daily agenda at this point.
Well, what you said about changing things and noticing patterns, that reminds me of something that happened in the gym today.
Let's hear it.
Someone who comes there just about every day, he was talking to someone else and telling them that his parents knows exactly when he was conceived, exactly when they did the fucking that ended up making her pregnant with him. And right. They did it in a certain chair, and they passed the chair on to him.
That's weird.
And in their eyes, that's like a chair that you can get pregnant in. They call it the fucking chair.
Yeah, well,
and
that's the weirdest story I've heard all day, Matthias.
Yeah, that's a movie type of shit, man. They pass it on apparently, and now his dog is using it for a bed.
Well, I guess nope. I have nothing to add to that story.
Yeah. Well. Oh my God. It was so funny.
Right.
I just had to share. Speaking of patterns and recognizing them. I mean, listeners shouldn't probably shouldn't like have a chair that they do that with and pass on to their kids afterwards. But
So what were you going to add to that story?
I wasn't gonna add anything. I was just gonna share it.
Oh, gotcha. I'm just heard what you're going to say. Yeah, let's change the subject.
Oh my! I don't know if I can.
Right.
It seems like I've owned Pandora's box now, and all I want to talk about is fucking nothing
Oh,
important.
yeah. Right. Here's kind of, all right, this is kind of, I don't know. All right. This reminded me of an interesting story. There's a famous football player in America named Chris Zorich. I don't even know if I want to get into that. That'd be a whole separate episode. He's got a pretty miraculous story, and maybe we can get him on as a guest. We'll see. I'm just sparking the thought in my head. All right, I'll give you a couple more of what I consider, very powerful coaching stories. Again, I've talked to you a little bit about Randy Melvin, who ended up being as an athlete, he was a college national championship winner. As a coach, he was a Super Bowl champion and a Canadian Grey Cup champion. So, resume impeccable, upper echelon. One of the elite of the elite of the elite of coaches of all time. And he was like a varsity coach at my high school when I was a freshman and sophomore in high school. He went on to start his college football career like at the end of my sophomore high school season. And he was like, his structure, his discipline, his consistency, his ability to really establish a true program at our school was so powerful. Even when the new coach came in, who was a disastrous coach, if you ask me, we'll get back to that. So even when the new coach came in, like the principles and the work ethic and the style or impact that Randy Melvin had on our class of athletes kind of like lingered and carried us through, the rest of our high school years. So even though he wasn't our coach, the impact he had in a multitude of ways, like really like echoed and like stayed with him even after his physical presence was gone. And I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure.
So I will say this: there's the gentleman that came, this was very interesting. I'll just share this story because it's just a mind bender for me. Now, when I tell you it was a pool of athletes that were very talented, trust me, there was like multiple kids that went on to be professional athletes. We had I lost, let's just say, a very high number of kids that went on to become Division One athletes also. So the talent pool we had, I'm telling you, was powerful. We had kids that ended up being professional baseball players, multiple kids that started Division One college football, and it was like an undeniable like talent pool of athletes. Yet this head coach that came in, background this also, Aurora, Illinois is kind of a melting pot. It was like pretty, in a general sense, kind of a crew of like roughnecks. I remember one of my buddies, it's not important what the gang is. His older brother was a heavy hitter in a very well-known gang in the Chicago area. And even in high school, he had his own condominium, his own car, and he just lived on his own. His brother was like supporting him in the effort to like get him in a somewhat nicer area and, keep him away from the violence and some other BS. So this was kind of a shock to the new head coach because this new head coach, name's not important, came in from a very affluent suburb, a private school, and it was like culture shock to him to deal with these kids. And none of us were like inherently bad kids, but we were different than what he really was used to. And it was quite obvious early in. I think this man regretted taking the job very early into his tenure there, and his actions. He just somehow could not embrace this crew of kids he was coaching. He was kicking kids off the team, like blatantly, like not. For example, we had a running back who averaged it's either, I believe it was like 8.7 or it might even have been 9, some ridiculous amount of yards per carry, which is enough to feed the kid the ball all day. And you're going to score every drive. If you got a running back that's averaging, upwards of 10 yards per carry, yet his total yards on the season were like 450 yards. So this guy had such a blatant, strange means of just the opposite of wanting his athletes to succeed and be successfully the best they could be. He was like sabotaging because of whatever. I don't know if he was racist, or I don't know if he had other problems going on in life, but I've never seen a coach take a crew of athletes that were that talented and intentionally set the scenario up for them to not be successful. I don't know if I'm articulating the whole, how strange the whole scenario was. What does that say to you, Matthias?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I understand either. It's like there were some very talented players, and he didn't really put them in a position that they could play optimally.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And even to the point, we had arguably the best athlete in the Midwest on our team, who the first game of the season effortlessly scored 4 touchdowns. And he wanted, for some silly reason, which he got a penalty thrown against him where he blatantly was not, it was a bad call on the official. The details aren't that important. But because of this penalty, the head coach, this kid was like Chicago Tribune Player of the Week. And again, I'm telling you, he was one of the absolute best athletes in the nation, ended up being drafted for the Major League by Major League Baseball right out of high school, had a very successful Major League Baseball career. In my estimation, he could have been equally superior of a football player, possibly even better. And after the very first game of the season, the coach literally kicks this guy off the team. Does that make any sense whatsoever in the world?
Well, why did he kick him off the team? Did he do anything?
No, because he wanted to give him this he wanted to punish him for something. No, the detail's not that important. The kid did not do anything malicious or bad, or there's nothing that justified kicking the kid off the team. He wanted to punish him for something he didn't do. And then so he's like, Coach, I did not do that. And it was very blatant watching the film. He didn't do it. So the coach is like, well, in that case, you're just off the team. Get out of here. So this young man, he was literally playing football just to be part of the team and help his friends. Like I said, he ended up getting drafted by Major League Baseball in high school. He was not relying on playing football to further his athletic career. He already knew the path he was taking. I just out of respect for the kids he grew up with, he was still playing on the team in an effort to help the team win a state championship. That was our goal. So the guy wants to play bully with him and say, well, get out of here then. He was like, okay, later. So it's going to be losing one of the top players in the nation is going to change your team's dynamics. That's just one small example. I don't mean to harp on it too much, but it was just we're talking about the impact of coaches, and that certainly is an impact by a coach that was just strange to say the least. I really have no explanation for it other than I experienced it. It was pretty bizarre.
Yeah, I don't even know how to describe my thoughts on that. I barely even know what I'm thinking because it's so far out there, It's just
it really is. It's you made the comment so much, and if I took the time to really think about it, I could probably paint even a better picture how strange all of his actions were. It was literally like he was sent in to sabotage the team. That's how egregious and strange and anti-high performance his coaching style was. It was just very, very bizarre.
But I bet that taught you guys how to take ownership over your own life and try not to be affected by other people.
Yeah. All right, let's get a much more positive story. One of my old college roommates named Ryan Wilkins. Ryan had kind of a bit of a rough upbringing, and he was attempting to play some college football. It just didn't work out. I think he had the athletic ability to be a good college football player. It was just behind the 8 ball. There was some friction between him and one of the other coaches. He got sick at a time of the season when your attendance was critical. And had he been maybe one of the stars of the team, it would not have been a big deal. but this kid was like viciously sick. I think he got like pneumonia or something. And just God's honest truth, it was not safe for him to show up and go to his practice. So when the next day he went to tell the coach's like, yeah, you obviously don't care about football enough. Get out of here. Kicks him off the team, which I thought was kind of a BS maneuver. Be that as it may, Ryan ended up becoming and I think he did the same thing. He took the lessons of negative coaching and flipped the script. He became a very, very good coach himself. Ended up being a high school state champion coach relatively early into his whole coaching career. So I thought it was pretty awesome. He took, and that it kind of like put him on like that experience getting like kicked off the team for some BS reason. Instead of it making him like negative about the situation, he actually came back and flipped the script and became a very, very positive impact for young athletes. So that was a pretty cool story. His name's Ryan Wilkins. He was the head coach for Downers Grove North in the Chicago area. He became just a badass football coach, made a bunch of difference in a lot of kids' lives, and actually, to become a state champion coach, especially in Illinois, is like pretty big achievement, man.
Yeah.
So shout out Ryan Wilkins.
That shows character. I mean, like so many people are so busy being caught up in their little feelings, like, oh, someone did that or someone said that. Oh, I didn't reach my goal in this month, or like I'm so sad and depressed. And I mean, really, it's a very selfish mindset when people are like bent out of shape whenever things don't go their way. Because really, what you could view it as are tests to level up your own character, to get better, to get stronger, and to acquire some tools to not only help yourself, but also be an asset to other people, help other people become better. It's really when you go through adversity, when you have big problems, when you even become traumatized to a point, depending how bad it is.
Oh, absolutely.
You learn new skills to improve your life, become much better in a certain way, and that gives you also the skills to make life better for other people. Because when you're doing better, you give off a better vibe. When you do better at something, you get more skilled in whatever it is you like to do. That also means that you can pass on that knowledge, that experience to other people, give them some advice, give them a heads up, say, hey, I made pretty good progress with this. Maybe whatever you want to do, you can make good progress. Maybe think of it this way. Maybe get up earlier some days. Maybe do this, that, or the other. And I mean, if people get some encouragement from a person who is not selfish and who actually believes in himself and are leveling up, that can really help a person in their ongoings in their lives and their likelihood
absolutely.
of reaching their 100%. Own goals. And I mean, I think that's what it's all about, using the resistance in life, using the diversity, the problems to become better, then getting bigger problems, become even better, and just fucking help out, become an asset to people.
Yeah, you better believe it, man, 100%.
If you're not getting better, you're getting better at a fucking pain in the ass to be around. And nobody likes it.
Right. Swapping old stories, then I do think I own a single season off-season record for the most intense, consistent, and brutal punishment runs of any college football player in the history of the United States of America. What do you think of that, Matthias?
Can you say that again? I thought you were like in the middle of saying something, so I kind of was waiting for the punchline. Can you say it again?
No, there's no punchline. I just, again, at the first school I attended, like the level of punishment that the head coach decided to put me through in the off season was like, I was a good player. I contributed like very, very well to the team. I was a starter. In my estimation, I played at least like an all conference level minimum. It was, my performance in the field was undeniable. Yet this coaching staff, like, I don't know if they were trying to get me to quit or just see how far, I don't know what they were trying to do, but they dedicated a coach each day to take me through like this extra workout above and beyond everything that's done with the normal protocol, that was like at minimum like double duty of what every other football player had to do, just to like take me to the sheer limit of my like physical exhaustion, like 6 days a week. So from a scientifically, from a scientific training approach and say this is absolutely ridiculous to take a person through, but evidently it was meant to be because I went through it. And like, for example, every day I do a minimum of 20 180-yard sprints under a certain time, like, which is pretty grueling. That's kind of a rough like distance to sprint if you've ever done that kind of a workout before. And beyond that, so I think they were just trying to like get me to quit, but I think I was just too stubborn to quit. So if there was any positive to come from the experience, it taught me like that how far I could push my body if I just like unplugged and just kept going. Because looking back on it, it's very hard to believe that any human would really even get through that type of like extra work they're putting me through. There's an old famous powerlifter named John Cole. Not sure if you know the name. When we interview Vince Onella, I'll have to bring his name up, see what he has to say. But John Cole was asked, what's the key to like breaking through it, doing like new personal best performances, or in his case, like world record performances? He said he viewed his body as having like a circuit breaker panel. So he said the key to like maximizing your own performance was to literally remove the breaker and let all of the current flow through with no like safety mechanism like in place, just truly giving like all out effort. And that his point was most people don't know what it's like to truly give all out effort.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's very accurate because like basic physiology states that in the beginning, a beginner lifter can't use anywhere near the full capacity of the muscles. They have to like kind of teach their nervous system that, hey, it's okay to handle this weight. You can do better. You can do it without getting hurt, all that stuff. And then after many years, they become able to use a lot more of their force output potential.
Right.
And I mean, it's true. And I think that's part of the reason why I've hurt myself a lot of times is because I can really get super fucking exhausted with very low volumes of training. And I strive like intuitively very hard to do as much volume as possible. And I've just noticed there are people who can do some of the shit that's very hard for me. They can kind of just walk away just fine, do a bunch of exercises, go home, come back the next day, 6 days a week, and get bigger and stronger over the years. Whereas I'm like I can put myself to the ground,
Yeah.
and kind of be done with it in just one set of like squats or deadlifts if I really push it. And I think maybe I have like a capacity that is kind of uncommon to just really push the higher threshold of what my muscle fibers can endure in a short period of time, where a lot of people are generally more enduring when there's load involved and a high tempo of.
Separate subject, but I don't want to get into it right at the moment. But remind me to talk to you about PHA training. I don't think we've really ever talked about it. I think that might be a style of training you'd really enjoy, like integrating into your own workouts. But that's a whole separate subject. We don't have enough time to get into that now.
Yeah, I guess it was kind of like
PHA training.
Yeah.
What's that?
I guess it was kind of like a topic change, but it kind of tied into it as well, I think, because like you have to train over time to teach your body to keep more of itself into a single set or like in a short time frame. And then you have to build your work capacity from there. And I think the better you become at really, really pushing your muscles hard, the harder it is to learn to do more sets, because your work capacity is kind of going up, but you're kind of having to do the same amount or even less volume than you used to.
Well, I'm jumping subjects again a little bit. Something you said earlier reminded me of this. I'm telling you also, there's something about universal consciousness, man. Because like the example I gave about the first person to break the 4-minute mile, it took decades to do it. The first person that did it, boom, there's a breakthrough. Like 20 other people in that same year did it. And look at like raw squatting. Like I remember like for a while, I think the world record raw squat was like 900 or under 900. And now it's 1,157. That's over a very short period of time. I remember, I believe this was last fall of 2020, excuse me. All of a sudden, they were like, boom, 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 like 3 world records set almost, I believe, the same weekend or within a 1-week period of time. Dave Hoff set the equipped total record. Daniel Bell set the knee wrap the Raw Classic, whatever it's called, total record. Julius Maddox set the all-time bench press record, and there might have been one other total. Maybe, I don't remember for sure. Not Ray Williams might even have set some kind of total record that same weekend, but at least 3 all-time world records, 3 different states, 3 different meets, 3 different athletes, boom, all at that same time, like set these incredible world records. So it's just, when the reality of an expectation is changed, it just seems to have such a powerful impact amongst, like, it's like almost like some magical like flow that exists. When a reality is accepted, the level of performance just more or less rises to like that level, and it becomes more of an expectation. I saw a video the other day of a freaking 16-year-old kid. I believe his body weight was like in the 140s, bench pressing over 400 pounds. Why? He just evidently believed he could do it. To me, that is absolutely insane. Doesn't make any sense at all. But the reality is, he's doing it.
Yeah. The power of self-belief and some half-decent genetics can get you much farther than most other people will ever dream of.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we talk about, recurring theme is the power of beliefs. Man, if you can conceive it and believe it, you can achieve it. So it's kind of like the magical element is what, how do you anchor those beliefs? How do you reinforce those beliefs? And I think that kind of ties into like the whole coaching. The main topic of like the impact of a coach today, if that coach can really anchor the proper beliefs in the athlete or client, that coach is going to have, his or her athletes are going to achieve an incredible amount of success.
Yeah. Besides, like, who cares if you shoot for having $1 billion in your bank account and you end up only having $100 million? I mean, is that really like a sob story?
I don't think so.
It's certainly a lot better than telling yourself you'll never have even 1 million and then dying broke. Like,
right? Agree. Yeah, that's another deep. That's part of like eventually. That's kind of a deviation to a different subject, also. But like, whatever the thing is you're trying to achieve in life, eventually, just like accepting it, embracing it, like settling and like not being so damn hard on yourself. So there's a fine line between a high expectation and being incredibly disciplined, and also being comfortable with who you are. It's a fine line. And if I was perfect at it, if I'd said I was perfect at that, I'd be lying completely. I'm just not. Again, we look at like, I keep bringing up Junior Seau, like the Hall of Fame level football player, one of the most badass ultimate athletes on the planet. He was so restless with his own being, he ended up committing suicide. It makes no sense. On paper, they go, why would that guy kill himself? He was like a millionaire, all these accolades, all these things going for him. But, you never know how someone's doing, man. I'm jumping subjects again. Never assume someone's in a great place, man. Be kind, be considerate. People, so many more people you realize are so damn hard on themselves. Sometimes the last thing they need is someone else like jumping on the bandwagon and being hard on them also. So encourage your fellow neighbors, encourage your friends, man. Be that person that encourages other people and can have the skill set of being really, truly being happy for someone else's success. I think that's like a key difference maker in the quality of a human being. If you can truly be happy for someone else's success, that's the mark of a kick-ass human being in my world.
That's a great note to finish on.
All righty. Well, much love then. Everybody, Rap Fiend Radio, keep it on if you want to hear some great music from the history, great independent artists, new beats, everything in between. Matthias, any parting thoughts?
Nah, man. Let's just end it on that note.
All right. Peace. Talk to you soon, y'all.
Peace.